about some people that he served with in the Army.
He was like a true, honest-to-goodness war hero.
Today we talk about a real war hero, my uncle, my great-uncle, Robert McHolland. Go to 15minutemiracles.com to learn more.
Howard Pemberton, who was there when he was killed, right there in front of him. Some of the things he had said about him. And then Hobart Weinbrenner, who was another one of his friends there. Going back through the records, I got records. I got his records from the Military Personnel Record Center in St. Louis. Thank goodness they weren't burned. They're literally burned edges.
There was a lot of stuff that was burned in St. Louis.
That we lost 85% of the World War II records. 85%. His was not lost, but there were burned edges on some of the papers, literally.
Really?
Of his file. But I think it's relatively complete. Because I worked in personnel administration, and right. I had a pretty good idea of what to do, or what should be in there, and it's fairly complete. Mom wouldn't give up on, I want to know, because there was confusion, because they didn't get he was missing in action, from
the very end of November of 44.
Officially.
Or October 44.
24th of November until 1st of January before she heard. She got the telegram that he was missing. The first part of December. He was missing.
One day around the 10th of December, which was his birthday. And my daughter's birthday.
That's when she finally got a telegram say, but it wasn't until it was dated the 31st of December that he said he was killed in action. The telegram, if I'm not mistaken, came the 10th, and it said that he was missing. Yeah, that he was missing in action as of the 24th of November. Now, because they couldn't, there was a lot of confusion because they'd been overrun. And the guys that were left in these three houses on the edge of that town, they had gotten out pretty much under the cover of darkness in one or two, and bands of one or two or three. That they got back to friendly lines, and they didn't know what had happened. Other than after they started asking, well, Captain Mack got it. They killed him, and so it was just word of mouth, and they didn't like. If they had it from enough of the guys, they would report him as killed, and they did a internal review investigation, and they were sure that he was killed, and he obviously was. That he was killed in action. The body wasn't recovered. Okay, that's all. I think she got that much information unofficially, and then she kept pressing the War Department. Said my husband's brother says that they haven't found the body, or haven't found the remains, and so then they went ahead and told Mom. Officially, the remains were recovered. He's been buried. The body was taken to an American National Cemetery, military cemetery in Sandoval, and that's where they took him, and that's where he is. Well, Mom still she just when they ask about bringing the remains home for burial, officially, these letters are in the file I have now. I think she had her mind made up, and she must have convinced Mary Lee and her half sisters and half brother, that let's just leave him there. or let's leave it there. Let's leave it there because
Sure.
she didn't think he would be in the casket. She didn't think they found him. There's no doubt in my mind that it was him because of the size, everything. They knew his height, and even though his remains would have been pretty complete because he was hit with machine gun fire and died. Howard Pemberton said instantly, said they got him and he was gone, and so it was.
Tell me about his medals. What
Okay.
did he win?
He's got the top. I'll go with the top down. Distinguished Service Cross, which is next to the Medal of Honor. And that was for things that happened those last 2 days. I won't even try to get into, well, I don't know if you'd like it sometime. I wrote something and they published parts of it in the Chronicle, and then they messed it up right at the end. But about a bad day at Bootsdorf. And it was the leading up to that. It was the day before and the day at Bootsdorf when he was killed. That this is when he did all of the things that led to the Distinguished Service Cross. And I'll get that for you if you'd like that sometime.
Sure.
Because I can't give you all. I can describe it fairly briefly,
Sure.
but I miss a lot of the things. But they were back in these woods, the Camp Holds woods, and Howard Pemberton, the guy that was with him, and I got to know. And Howard was a farm boy, and he said there was something different about Captain Mack. He ended up calling him Captain Mack. He was a lieutenant when he was its company commander first, because there's something they call the weapons company, which had within an infantry company, infantry battalion, you had 3 line companies. You had the riflemen in these 3 line companies, and then you had a weapons company, which had some smaller mortars, heavier machine guns. I don't know if the bazooka that would take out a tank. That was the weapons company. Now, that's what Uncle Bob had first. Was M Company, and Howard was in that company. And Howard was I could imagine he would have been one of the squad leaders, and because he was a sharp guy, and he said Uncle Bob was different. He was different than the rest of those officers. Said you could tell that right from the beginning, because most of the officers just felt like I don't know, some of the training they would
better
get.
Than them,
better than the other guys. So he wasn't like that at all. And said, especially on some of these marches, I'd walk along with him. We'd just talk about back home and what we did. But he got to know him really well as you could within a few months there. And then, what had happened is after a tough fight, before they got, this was in June, July time frame, they lost a lot of the battalion itself had lost a lot of the officers, and they made him company commander of K Company. This was in July. And but what happened then is Howard kept in touch because Uncle Bob would always ask for his machine gun guys.
Sure.
And they were still pretty close. And that night in the Camp Holds, they call it Camp Holds Woods, Howard said the last time I really talked much with him, said he was tired. He said he should have gone back. Like they gave everybody a chance to go back, take a break for a week or two, he said he should have gone back. He said he didn't need to be out there. He said he was still going strong as far as doing the job, but you could tell it was wearing on him. And he said that's the last real conversation I had. But he said the next day is when Germans had counterattacks, and he led the company through and personally destroyed, killed a bunch of the guys. He kept his small group together. The company was a company would be over 100 men. He was down to 25 or 30, I think. And they were supposed to take the town of Buchtsdorf. So the next morning, after a counterattack by the Germans, and they staved that off, and he had done some things there that they mentioned for the Distinguished Service Cross. But then during that day, and this is where not only Howard Pemberton, but Emmett Boyd, another one of his sergeants in the 9 Company, they were a part of the attack going across this long field, and they destroyed a couple of these bunkers where they were concrete bunkers with Germans in there and machine guns firing at them. It took them most of the day to get across that field and get rid of those bunkers. And then they got to the house finally, just about dark. There were 3 houses apparently, and they got in. And Uncle Bob had told them to run for the houses, get up there, and we'll regroup after you get up there. And so they did. The rest of the guys, they were scattered up there. Howard Pemberton happened to be in the same house he was. Hobart Weinbrenner was in one of the others. I'm not sure where his first. He got 2 silver stars, which was the next one, which is you have to really do something. I can't tell you all the specifics, but the first one came.
You got one of them from General Van Fleet.
General Van Fleet, and I don't know if it's his first.
October.
It was October, so that was probably the oak leaf. That's the second one, the oak leaf cluster. You don't get another medal, but you get a cluster to put on there. It's the second award. And then the Purple Heart when he was killed. I always get it. And he wasn't. There's no record of him being wounded before that, so he had been fortunate up to that point.
So what did he win the first Silver Star for?
Okay, there was an action. It was as the Third Army was moving across France and trying to clear out all of these small towns. And it was in one of those small towns that he did some things, and I don't have a whole record of that. I can't recall it all right now. But he did some things that almost could have been a Distinguished Service Cross. I don't know how they would. I don't even know. I have no idea how they did that. But he did something there where I think he saved a couple of his, or he helped save a couple of his guys, rescued a couple of guys, and they were under fire and all that. And I think it was very similar on the second one. If you ever read much about that period with Patton's Third Army was moving across France as quickly as they could, and there was something called the Felice Gap, a big area where we actually had the Germans. We'd come in, we had them cut off, and there was they call it the Felice Gap, where something happened and somebody. I don't know who's being faulted for that, for having held. Patton didn't want to hold. And I think maybe someone, the Army group commander had said to hold because we got to let something else happen over here. And the Third Army was going to close it. And there were German units, several German units in here that were escaping through the gap. But somehow Uncle Bob, one of his actions had to do with what his company did, as best as they could to keep that from happening.
My very favorite 15-minute miracle, my Uncle Robert McHolland. Please listen to 15-Minute Miracles if you want to hear more of these amazing stories.